Toss aside the touchy-feely notions of love in business and recognize the real power it holds. Welcome to the Love is Just Damn Good Business podcast with host Steve Farber. Drawing on his work with a wide variety of companies from the Fortune 100 to smaller family-owned businesses, Farber shares inspiring interviews with business leaders and proven strategies for how you can create experiences that your customers will love by developing a culture that your employees, teammates, and colleagues love working in. Discover why and how love, at the end of the day, is just damn good business for you too. Here's your host, Steve Farber.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Love is Just Damn Good Business podcast. I'm your host, Steve Farber. Today, our podcast is brought to you by the book, Love is Just Damn Good Business. Now, how, you may wonder, does a book sponsor a podcast? Well, it does if you're the author of it, which I am. So I invite you to go and check it out on Amazon or anywhere else you buy books. And if you would be so gracious as to leave a review, that would be fantastic as well. Today, my guest is, as it turns out, a soul brother, for reasons that will become apparent very soon. Dr. Pelè is a best-selling author. He's an educator. He's been in the HR industry. He's been in the marketing industry. He's just a Renaissance man. He's also a fine musician. So if you're familiar with my work at all, you see where the soul brother thing is kind of coming into play here a little bit. Dr. Pelè was born in an African village, a war-torn African village. He came to the United States and pursued the American dream. So he is what we typically refer to it as, anyway, historically. So coming from humble beginnings to a very accomplished career here in the U.S., he lives in Austin, Texas. Why do we call him Dr. Pelè? Well, not because he's going to put a stethoscope up to you or anything, but because he holds a PhD in organization and management. He's an accomplished speaker. He's been all over the place doing some amazing things and also creating some really phenomenal music. So, Dr. Pelè, it is great to have you on the podcast, sir.
Thank you so much, Steve. It is such a pleasure to be here. I really appreciate it.
Now, I want to explore your journey, of course, which means hearing a little bit of your story. Now, in your bio, you drop just a little hint that where your life's journey started is not, shall we say, the norm. Certainly not for most people listening to this podcast. So tell us the high level version of the Dr. Pelè journey, starting back in Africa.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that introduction. A lot of people find themselves where they are today. And the funny thing is that if we look back to what started it all for us, we find really interesting clues. For me, what started my journey was being in a war zone, literally one of the children that you may have seen on those National Geographic pictures, black and white, with the flies buzzing around the faces and the big stomachs. I was one of those kids. We were afraid of dying of hunger and we were, bombs falling all around us. And in that environment of having nothing and being afraid for everything, my mother did the most amazing thing. And this is what started my life's journey. What she did was, in the absence of food, in the presence of fear, she would sing songs. And she would take my name, Pelè, and put them into the songs and make up these songs and raps and just share them with myself and all the children in the refugee camp and so on. And it was so much fun that we found happiness through those songs. And the happiness did the strangest thing. It drove away the fear. It drove away the hunger. And that was my first example that a feeling like happiness could actually subsume physical, tangible things like hunger, right? It was greater.
So how old were you?
We're talking 2-3 years old. And this was the Biafran Civil War of Nigeria. This was in the late 60s. And, out of that, I learned probably my life's most important lesson, which has driven me to everything else I do today. And that is, you have to discover the thing that makes you happy first before you pursue success. Material success is out there. Sure, you can look at other people and all these things, but if you're not connected through the thing that makes you happy, you will always struggle. And so for me, happiness is music, it's storytelling, it's all the things my mother did. I find happiness in those things. And so therefore, I have become the guy who, even though I have a PhD in organization and management, I still got my guitar, right? Because I'm sticking to the thing that makes me happy. And I find that it works.
Yeah. So I'm curious, you have this vivid recollection of not only the strife, but the happiness that your mother cultivated for you in the midst of all that through music and story but what I'm curious about is, was that always clear for you, or did there come a time in your adult life where you reflected on it, where you looked back and then discovered where your happiness came from, or was it just always that clear and stayed with you through your entire life?
What a great question. Steve, I have to tell you that most people, and I'm confident that this is a true statement, most people live entire lifetimes where they are constantly questioning, am I happy? Am I truly doing what I love? Right? Am I connecting the dots between my passion and my paycheck? And the answer is not always yes. So for me, I've lived that same lifetime questioning myself. And I always saw that the trail, the evidence I was leaving behind was always, I'm happy when I do music. I'm happy when I teach people things. I'm a born storyteller. And so I'm not happy when I'm doing other things, though. And so you start to connect the dots and say to yourself, if I want to design the perfect life, I need to look back at the life I've already lived and look for the clues of what has made me happy. I wrote a book. I've written 6 books now. And one of my favorite books of all those is one called The Story of You. And it defines a strategy in which you need to go back to the story you've lived to discover, and as you say, rediscover the things that have really been who you are. And then take those things and use them to intentionally design your future. And that's why today you can't see me in a video without my guitar in that specific spot and my book in that specific spot, because I'm living the life I've designed, right? And it's all about music and storytelling and teaching people and helping people.
Was there a moment where you discovered for yourself that you were not living the life that you wanted to design, and that's what inspired you to go back and figure out what that would be? Did you have kind of a moment of, we could call it revelation, where you said, no, I got to change this up, and I've got to figure out what makes me happy?
Yeah.
Is it always obvious?
I have them almost every week, but I can tell you that I did have one that's very memorable. I remember I was a vice president at an organization, and I was sitting in front of my computer, and across comes an email that says, "You're fired." Not quite that dramatic, but yeah. You get it.
Yeah.
Right? The email basically said it's over. So here I am. I'm making well over 6 figures. I have a family to support. My life has been defined by this title called Vice President of Human Resources, and it was over. The money would be gone tomorrow. The title, everything was done. And that shocked me into a realization that, I cannot continue to be the titles other people give me. I cannot continue to be these things that are not really even things I enjoy. And so I asked myself, what do you enjoy? For me, that was easy. I've always done music. I've always written songs. I've always been the storyteller guy. I used to do things like Toastmasters. I'd win regional. I actually was a Toastmasters regional champion in Minnesota in 2006. I've always done this stuff. It's like the clues are there. So why don't you go teach people things? Go use your speaking. Go use your music. And stop trying to fit into these boxes other people are giving you, which they can fire you from so easily. And that's, I think, and this was about 7 years ago. That's what really put me on the path to where I am today, which is, I'm a creative entrepreneur who uses things like music and teaching and storytelling as a way to help other people build their brands online, right? So I've got this thing, believe it or not, this is true story. No one claimed the URL, video brand marketing. I couldn't believe it. So I picked up video brand marketing as really probably the main thing that I help people with. Right. And then, of course, profitable happiness is the concept that drives me. Find what makes you happy and use it to do something that's profitable. And for me, that's going to be, or that is, video brand marketing online.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things that makes you happy.
Yeah.
So the that moment where you got the you're fired email, and you have a family to support. You're accustomed at that point to being on a salary.
Yeah.
And the decision that you made was, I don't want anybody else to define my title, which is a really cool way of saying it. But that decision then to go into business for yourself, when you have a family to support versus going out and finding another title with another salary, is a massive thing.
Yeah.
And I'm speaking from my own direct experience. I went through a very similar thing in that, I left, it was my own business, but I knew I hated it, but I wanted to go into something else. And that feeling of uncertainty with mouths to feed is no small thing. And right now, in the time that we're having this conversation, during this pandemic, when, so many people are uncertain about their jobs, their careers, what advice would you give somebody who's not really an entrepreneur by nature, let's say, but is kind of forced into a scenario where their paycheck that they've relied on has disappeared and they don't know where to go next? Where does this pursuit of happiness fit in a way that makes it profitable? And I love your phrase, profitable happiness.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give somebody who's in that that strange kind of in between with a lot of uncertainty?
I appreciate that question, and I really approach it with a lot of humility, because not everyone has the same bricks. Some of us have to take a long-term view. We have to say, okay, this is what makes me happy. I'm going to design a life that will come to fruition in about 6 months. In the meantime, I'm going to do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Some people have that. Other people have a situation in which they can go to a family member or rely on their spouse and have them take the financial part of these struggles for a while until they get up and running. So for me, it was a little bit of both of those kinds of strategies, somewhere in the middle. I had some savings. My wife supported me and was on the same page with me. And together we made the decision to move forward. So I would say, and I, to your point, a lot of people talk about the American dream and just go for what you believe and all this stuff. Look, it doesn't always work that way. Sometimes it's not the right idea to just jump into what your passion is, just jumping in cold. That is not great advice all the time. But if you can space it out and you can gradually build into it, you will be rewarded when you finally made the connection between your passion and your paycheck.
Yeah, it's something that I'm very, not to overuse the word, but I'm passionate about myself just from my own experience. Also through the pursuit of music. In a previous podcast episode, I tell my story of bringing music back into my professional life. And the punchline is that we all need to do that for ourselves. We need to find those things that make us happy and do them. Now, the challenge is, if what I think is going to make me happy, so this is kind of maybe a bit of a devil's advocate sort of a question. Mm-hmm. If there's something that I want to do because it makes me happy, like maybe it's music or maybe it's art or maybe it's writing poetry, mm-hmm. or whatever it is, maybe it's playing soccer, and I love it, it makes me happy, and I can't imagine a better scenario than making money by doing that. Mm-hmm. But what if I just flat out don't have the talent for it? Right? So I might love playing guitar and it makes me really happy, mm-hmm. but I really suck at it. Yeah. And there's no way anybody's ever going to pay me for that. Yeah. How do I reconcile that?
You are asking questions that take me directly into the things I love to teach. Because one of the biggest things we have to identify is the map between our greatness and the need that's in the market, right? It's all about demand and supply. To really map what you believe in and what you're great at, you cannot go at the exclusion of what the market is looking for and needs. One of the problems that I have with being a musician, right, is that most of us musicians have no clue about entrepreneurship because we've been taught to believe that music is all about, hey, sing about your internal feelings. It's all about you. It's like, hey, come, just tell us what you feel. No, there's another type of music that is about serving others, right, and helping other people. And so what you have to discover is, well, what do other people need? Other people need motivation. Other people need mindfulness. Perhaps you could tailor some of your music to that. And it's when you make the map between your passion, and we're using music as an example, when you make a correct map between your passion and the things that provide a profit and a paycheck, that's the sweet spot that you want to be in. So for example, I do a lot with YouTube and with video, right? The very first thing you've got to do on YouTube or with video is to do some research on what people are already looking for. Because if you just show up and say, hey, this is me, I'm a very entertaining guy, and I'm just going to talk about this topic. Well, guess what? You might be lucky, because if you're in the gaming industry, everybody wants gaming, and you're going to just do well. If there are other industries like that. But if you are in an industry that nobody's looking for, nobody cares about, and you're like, yes, this is me. Sorry. It's not going to...
It won't be profitable.
It won't be. And then to your other point, which is, what if you just aren't good at something? That's probably something that I have to say that's not an excuse at all. Because, look, there's a guy that I saw on American Idol some years ago. I think his name is Andrew Huang or Hong. I'm not sure.
Right, yeah. This
brother could not sing to save his life, but he became a multi-million-dollar star. Why? Because he used it as a comedy. He made fun of himself. So there's always a way out. And look, if you've got talent for something, your strategy needs to be to practice that thing until you get good enough to present yourself. There is no excuse for that.
That's a really interesting perspective on it. My approach to it is I encourage people to do it anyway. And listen, if what you love to do doesn't bring you money, the fact that it still brings you happiness means that it brings you energy, and that energy is something that you need to be successful in whatever you're doing. So I think a lot of times people make a false choice that if I don't make money at it, that means I shouldn't do it because I need to do something else that will pay my bills, etc.
Yeah.
Why are they mutually exclusive?
Exactly.
So there's nothing wrong with having an avocation, with having a hobby that fills me up, that gives me creative expression, that lights my fire, because that's going to transfer into everything that I do to make money, and maybe even will make that more enjoyable.
There's actually a business angle too. So yes, the angle of do what you love because it gives you the energy to continue doing other things. That's great. There's actually a business angle though too. Because look, if you think about the definition of a brand, everybody has probably heard the term, you are your brand. So whether you work for IBM or Microsoft, at the end of the day, it's Steve Farber and it's Dr. Pelè. We are brands, okay? So if you think about what your brand is really the authentic expression of everything that you are, okay? If you want people to truly connect with you authentically, fall in love with your brand online, you've got to bring your whole self. You can't leave stuff behind. So if you want to actually do music, use it as part of your brand marketing. Because what happens is, you may not be selling records the traditional way. You're not going to be the next Michael Jackson or Prince or Stevie Wonder. That's fine. But you're going to be the strangest person anybody ever saw. Because here's a leadership development guru like Steve Farber playing a guitar. I want to talk to this guy. He makes me happy, right? Or Dr. Pelè, who's, doing this stuff, but he plays music too. That differentiation factor is a powerful brand marketing move. So I would not encourage anyone who can't find a direct connection from their love or hobby or talent to music, to money, I would not encourage anyone to drop it. I would say bring what you are and use it to help people fall in love with your brand.
Fantastic. Now, I want to hear that story of where you're in the corporate world, you love music, and you decide to bring those two of those together. And this, of course, is why we discovered that we're soul brothers, because we've been on essentially the same journey of the integration of our passion for music with our passion for the professional work that we do. So tell us where that happened for you and what that looks like now.
Well, as I've mentioned already, I was once a vice president of human resources. I also was an executive coach, and I was a vice president at Dale Carnegie Training here in Austin, Texas as well. And so I've had quite a few opportunities to do traditional training and traditional executive coaching, with the assessments and all of that stuff. And I didn't love it that much. And it was stressful for me because I was kind of in corporate situations and so on and so forth. But then I woke up one day and I said to myself, how on earth can I really truly integrate music into how I teach people to become better leaders or teach people to become better team members, right? How do I do that? And I had a light bulb moment. Now, I don't know if I'll get lucky and this becomes a great story other people tell, but I can tell you it was very exciting for me. Here was the light bulb moment. If you think about how the airplane was introduced into the world, what happened was the Wright brothers went outside of the traditional engineering world. They looked at birds and they said, what can we learn from birds about flight? They studied birds, they did the research, and they basically copied flight from birds. That's what they did. So it gave me an example of, let's get out of the bubble we're in and let's see where we can find inspiration from other sources. Frederick Smith of FedEx did the same thing. He left the transportation industry and copied the hub and spoke transportation system from banking. Okay. And so there are examples of this out in the real world where you can say, you know what, let's put a break on this strategy. Let's go learn from something else. So I said, okay, McKinsey says that 97% of all executives surveyed said that the number one problem for teamwork, the number one thing that caused failure in projects was a lack of alignment. That's a McKinsey study. And which for me, that's harmony, right? So I asked myself, if harmony is such a big problem, where can we find harmony in nature perfected? Where? Guess where harmony has been perfected in nature?
Yeah.
Music. Right. And so that led me down the path of doing a whole bunch of research that ended up in this book. The book is called The 7 Songs of a Successful Team. And you can see me there with my guitar. And I found that there's an amazing parallel between the elements that make up great harmony in music and the elements that make up great harmony on teams. I was like, whoa, I got to research this. So I wrote a book about it, and it has become the core thing I do with respect to team development. And now I'm excited because I show up with my guitar and I teach people how they can be better at personality, strengths, emotion, vision, trust, habits, and success on their team in the same way that you need to have things like pitch and rhythm and melody and harmony in music. It's an amazing map. And so that's how I brought it together. So now I walk around looking for business knowing that my music is 100% part of it. And I love every day that I wake up because I get to do what I love and make money doing it at the same time.
Fantastic. I don't know do you remember way back when the book is a classic, beautiful little leadership book by Max Dupree called Leadership Jazz.
Ooh, I've heard of it.
Yeah, you should check that out. I mean, it's got to be 30 years since I read it.
Yeah.
But yeah, he explores the metaphor of music in an organization, and he uses jazz as the genre for the metaphor because jazz is that great combination of incredible synchronizing of rhythm and melody and all of that, and then it just breaks away into total improvisation. and that ability for a team to be able to gel together and hold that rhythm really strong when necessary, and then let individuals just cut loose and express their own individual creativity is really a beautiful and incredibly accurate metaphor. It's that whole thing, that old, ridiculous cliche that there is no I in team, right? Which is just always nauseating to me. I mean, for one thing, there's a lot of letters that aren't in team.
Yeah.
There's no Z in team either, for that. But the idea that there is no I is absurd, because a great team is made up of very competent, incredible, creative, brilliant I's, individuals. Yeah. And that musical analogy, you just let those people cut loose and the team is behind them, and then somebody else takes over. It's a beautiful thing that you're giving people the direct experience of that through your music.
Herbie Hancock once said that when he was in the Miles Davis band, Miles Davis, of course, the jazz guru of our time, right? And Herbie Hancock, who is still alive, he said that one day while he was playing his piano, he made a big mistake. He played the wrong chord on top of the wrong bass note. And everybody could hear it. And he was like, okay, my job is over. And what happened is that the leader of the band, Miles Davis, came over to him in real time while they were still playing and told him, keep doing that. Don't stop. So he thought, I better correct myself. But in fact, Miles Davis told him, keep doing that, because this mistake you've made has given us a chance to improvise in a new and possibly more exciting direction. And that's what they did. So the metaphor of music is so powerful with respect to teamwork. If leaders can become more flexible and recognize that even within errors and mistakes, there is beauty and potential, that becomes a whole thing. But I take it one step further. I love metaphor for music, but I also use music as a method, right? And I'll tell you what it is. I use music for the biggest challenge that we all face in learning and development, and that is learning transfer. The problem of learning transfer is so pervasive that up to 87% of all investments in training is lost. We're talking billions of dollars are lost. Why? Because people leave the training event, they go back to work on Monday morning at 9 a.m. and they forget everything they learned. And it so happens that music has an inbuilt power for memorization. That is why, for example, we have things like music therapy, where you can teach people who may have a dementia or some kind of a memory loss disease to actually remember, or even help their bodies reconnect with, some muscle memory through music. Music has some neuroscience that connects our entire brains in such a way that we can use it for memorization. In fact, if you think of the ABCs, we all learned our ABCs by singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Yeah. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? That's Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Right. And we will never forget that. So I actually use music as a way of transferring the learning from the learning environment in my team development and my leadership development into the reality by writing a song with the people that come to that thing about their vision, for example, or their trust or their personality, so that even before we talk about assessing all those things, we've designed a concept that becomes a memory for them.
I've never heard you say that before in our previous conversations. Uh-huh. That's another bit of a goosebump moment for me, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah,
I do an experience with my friends, the brothers Corin, who are incredibly accomplished musicians. They opened for Pink and Coldplay and Rod Stewart, and they're amazing songwriters. And we do this process that they developed, where we write a song with the room from scratch, an entirely original song.
Yeah.
And then go into the studio and record it afterwards. And it is a phenomenal experience for everybody present, because they've all participated in the creation of it. Mm-hmm. And when it's related to a particular subject or theme, then, like you say, they're never going to forget that. I would love for you to share some of your music with us if you'd be willing. Twist your arm, right?
Twist my arm, right? Well, actually, Steve, I was going to say one thing because I'm coming down with I've come down with a little bit of an allergy here. I'm going to do a little bit of singing, but I want to actually give you a link that you can share with your folks to the song that I'm singing so they can actually hear it for real. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
All right. So the song I'm gonna perform for you here is one of my favorite songs. Wrote this a while ago. It's called "I Got Happy," and basically what it means is it's a lot of people say I am happy, okay. But the problem with saying you are happy is that you're almost saying happiness is a feeling or a state that you just magically have. But the truth is, happiness is a thing that we have to actively go and get. We have to do happiness. We can't wait for happiness to happen to us. So anyway, that's the inspiration between this idea of I got happy. Goes something like this. Hello world, my heart is open wide. I got this smile so strong I just can't hide. Goodbye, cloudy day. Ain't no rain gonna come my way, 'cause I got happy. I got happy. 'Cause I believe in me. Yeah.
Oh, that is so good. I love that. It's a happy making song.
It's a happy song, yes. And it's the kind of song that I like to involve the whole team or whatever leadership training with, and we just find happiness by doing happiness, not by waiting to feel it. I can't tell you how many people show up one day and they're like, I got the Mercedes, I got the big house, but I'm not happy what happened.
It's fun to do that song with like a room full of actuaries and have them sing the happy tune.
Yeah. So anyway.
That'd make me happy. Hey, the guitar geek in me wants to know what kind of guitar that was.
Oh, this is a Taylor.
That's your Taylor, okay.
Yeah, I can't remember what the actual name is. It's actually I used to do. Okay, I'm looking at the name here. I can't. It's way over here. Anyway, I used to do Martins, and we talked about guitars. You've got a really cool guitar story, but I moved to Taylors because I just feel like they just feel more sturdy. They sound brighter. I've always enjoyed. I have like 7 guitars upstairs, so I'm a real geek like you. So
I'm a Martin guy. So
you're a Martin guy. See, I used to do Martin, but then Taylor's kicking them.
Taylor. I live here in San Diego. Taylor's a local company, so there's part of this kind of responsibility that one has to play Taylor if you live in San Diego. But I'm a Martin guy. I love Taylors. They're kind of known for their necks. But I have a Martin D45, which is a, kind of top of the line production model, and it's got a great neck and it sounds like a cannon. But anyway,
as your passion just shows up here, we can tell what you love to do.
The process of alienating 90% of the people listening. Don't give a shit about any of this. So I would love to know just briefly, given all the work that you've done and the integration that you've successfully done in your own life between what makes you happy around music, what makes you happy around video, and you just kind of pulled it all together. Are there some concrete steps, a little process, something that all of us can do to discover that for ourselves and at least get a little bit closer to creating that integration? Because everybody needs to be there, and so few people are. So how can we get people closer to it? Yeah, no,
I actually have a video that I'd love to, if you could connect to, that talks about this. It's like a 12-minute video online. But I do have a process for exactly that. It's amazing that you're asking me questions that I'm so connected to, Steve. I think we must be brothers from another mother. We must be. But here's my process. a lot of people, when designing their life or their business, they start with how they differentiate themselves and how their business or their product or their service works. And it's the wrong question to start with. Why? Because the people at the other end, the customer, does not care about how things work until they know who you are, right? And the very first question you've got to ask is, why? Why do I do what I do, right? And that speaks to the question of what makes me happy. So when you discover why you do what you do, then an amazing thing happens. The thing that inspires you is now available for you to use in inspiring other people. And that's where true authenticity is. Look, if I was talking to you about widgets and some funny stuff out here, and I wasn't playing my guitar and having a great time with you, the authenticity level would be like, way different. It just wouldn't be real. So I would really encourage anyone who wants to make that connection to start with, why do you wake up in the morning? What brings you total joy? What makes you come alive? Once you figure out why, then I have 7 steps that you ask why, and then you ask what, and then which, and then where, and when, to understand your customer and things like that. And then the last question is, after what do I do, is how do I do it, which is the differentiation question. So I have a 7-step process that takes you from why do I do what I do to how do I do what I do, and not the other way around.
Yeah, that's great. It's interesting from a leadership perspective, which obviously is my passion.
Yeah.
We'll ask the same question. So you posed it as, customers ask the question about who are you before they engage with you as a customer. Mm-hmm. But people do the same thing with their leaders. They don't only want to know, all these things are important. They don't only want to know what the vision is, what the expectations are of me, et cetera. They want to know who the leader is. So
absolutely,
if I'm the leader, then what can I do to more fully communicate and express who I am to the very people that I'm asking to follow me?
Absolutely.
And by integrating some of these things, again, even if I'm not making money at it, but by bringing these things into my work and the way that I lead, I'm revealing more of myself, which gives me a greater connection with the people that I'm leading. Makes me a more effective leader. Around here, here's what we call it. It's exactly what you've been describing. Do what you love in the service of people who love what you do. So it's doing what you love, using that to serve people and to serve them in such a significant way that they love the experience of your serving.
Absolutely.
So we'll put the links to your to the videos, to your music, and anywhere else. So, but what's the simplest way for people to connect with you? Is it at the website?
Yeah, I'll give you two ways. First is drpele.com, which is drpele.com. And then the second way is LinkedIn, because I actually happen to be a LinkedIn marketing expert as well. Gosh, how many things does a guy do, right? So my LinkedIn handle is drpele. So I think it's usually linkedin.com/IN and then /Dr. Pelè.
Right. And LinkedIn, by the way, is where you and I met.
Yes.
And it's so interesting because I've gotten to experience the many facets of Dr. Pelè in a very short period of time. I got to experience your work on LinkedIn. I got to experience your music. I got to experience your books. I got to experience your podcast, being a guest on your podcast. There are many, many facets.
Yes, and when we get past COVID-19, if we can ever find ourselves in one city, we will do coffee together, my friend.
Well, for sure, because my son lives in Austin.
Oh yes, I remember you mentioned that. Yes.
Yeah, I'll be out there for sure, and of course, nobody ever needs an excuse to come to San Diego, so we'll make that happen.
All right.
Very much looking forward to that, my friend.
Thank
you so much for being a guest on the podcast, or as we like to call it, the show, because that sounds so much more grand. And thank you, folks, for tuning in to this episode of the Love is Just Damn Good Business podcast. And until next time, as we just said, do what you love in the service of people who love what you do.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Love is Just Damn Good Business with Steve Farber. Join us again next time, because when customer and employee satisfaction just isn't enough anymore, we are here to back you up with specific ideas to operationalize love to make an enormous difference in your business, personal life, and the world around you. Visit our website at stevefarber.com to leave a review. And don't forget to share the love with your colleagues and friends, because after all, it's just damn good business.